Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. Of course, one of the most important updates are coming from New York with the General Assembly of United Nations. Today a lot of people told a lot of very interesting things regarding about Ukraine. And for example, Andrzej Duda, the president of Poland, the leader of Poland, told that the Ukrainians is something like a man who is currently going under the water. And basically by this comparison he humiliated Ukraine and Zelensky himself in Ukraine, and the main reason of these words is the situation with the export of agriculture of Ukrainian production. So after that, Vladimir Zelensky has cancelled the meeting with the president of Poland, or the president of Poland has cancelled the meeting with Zelensky. Nobody knows, but after that another leader, the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, also cancelled the meeting with Zelensky. So Zelensky had a lot of problems. He haven't managed to achieve almost nothing after the comparison as a drowned man, and basically, as I understand, he's going to return back to Ukraine with nothing. Or he needs to make some kind of steps, a lot of steps in the direction of Poland or United States of America. Anyway, we see that most of the countries are trying to force Zelensky to sign a pre-peace agreement and to freeze the conflict. When talking about Azerbaijan-Armenian war, or not Armenian, but Karabakh-Artsakh war, today we got more details regarding the situation on the ground, and Azerbaijani forces launched their offensive operation, as we discussed, in many directions, and as a result of those attacks they managed to advance and to penetrate the Armenian defense belt, or Artsakh defense belt, and currently there are questions about the storming of the settlement by the name of Martakert. Also, the sources are saying that Azerbaijani forces managed to get the outskirts of the capital of Artsakh, Stepanakert, and they managed to bypass also significant distance. And as I understand today, if Artsakh forces are not going to surrender or sign peace agreement or dismiss themselves, we're going to see a real storm of the settlement. This is going to be a very terrible picture, of course, with a lot of casualties among civilians. And as we can see, neither Armenian nor Russian forces are getting involved in this situation and are not trying to solve this issue with a diplomatical way. We see that Azerbaijani authorities, military forces don't have any resistance from anybody. And another direction of attack we see from the western part of Artsakh in direction of the central area, also in direction of Martakert. A lot of settlements has been captured, significant number of losses, and as I understand and I expect that today or maybe tomorrow the entire situation will be finished and Azerbaijan will be able to restore its constitutional order and the territories that we saw in 1991. And now we are moving to the situation on the ground in Ukraine, and today we got also a lot of very interesting details. The Ukrainians launched another operation along the Dnipro river, and as a result of some operation, as a result of some clashes and landing operations, they managed to cross the Dnipro river and to establish a small foothold on the Russian side, let's call it Dnipro river, and basically the Ukrainians controls this part of the area that located on the north of the settlement by the name of Oleshki, Sakhi, Podstepne, and so on. This is a very interesting area because this area is located very close to the Ukrainian positions, to the Ukrainian settlement by the name of Pridniprovsk. During the previous week, the Russians made significant artillery and bombings against this area using the not just the artillery rounds, they were using also the air bombs like FAB 500, FAB 250, TOS flamethrower systems, and so on. So this video confirms that as a result of clashes, the Ukrainians managed to cross Dnipro river and to establish the foothold. Before that attack, before that landing operation, the Ukrainians made massive drone strikes, massive drone attacks against the Russian army, against the Russian forces, Russian armored vehicles, Russian infantry, and so on. And as a result of those strikes, they managed at some point to suppress Russian position of Russian forces, and after that they landed. The Russian sources from their side published very interesting video from the area that located on the north of Pridnestrovia. On this video we can see how the Russian drone managed to discover the ammo depot, or probably the concentration of Ukrainian forces somewhere underground. In these small garages you can see there is open door, and there we can find something like shadow of equipment. And after that the Russians bombed this area using the air bomb. The thing is that some sources reported that that was the first geolocated usage not of not FAB 500, but of FAB 1500, so 3 times bigger bomb. And that's very difficult to understand. I'm not like a specialist to see the difference, but something tells me that that was just a FAB 500. Furthermore, if we increase the number of days, let's say from the 1st of September, we see the Russian concentration above this area along the Dnipro river. So as I expect, as I understand, if the Ukrainians are able to dig in deeper on this side of the river, because there is like a settlement along the river, so there are positions where the Ukrainians have some shelters and so on, they will try to develop further, and that they will try to attack not just in this direction, but I expect some attacks in direction of Lvova, Kazatska, Dradokamyanka, in direction of Korsunka, Dnipriana, and Novokakhovka. Now we are moving further to Orekhov bridgeheads, to the battle for Robotyne. As you can see, today we have significant number of updates from the Russian side. The Russian attacked the Ukrainians heavily with all types of weapons they have, with artillery rounds, with the cluster rounds, with the TOS flamethrower systems, with air bombings. They try to suppress it, try not to allow the Ukrainians to concentrate their forces. So they're doing, the Russians, this is the Russian pattern, they're doing this always before any Ukrainian offensive operation. We saw the same situation in Dnipro River, along Dnipro River, and a few days later, today, we could see the Ukrainian offensive operation, the landing operation. So currently the Russians are doing the same. They're attacking and bombing the edge position of Ukrainian forces, the concentration, accumulation of them. So that means that the Russians do expect a renewing of Ukrainian offensive operation, probably after the end of United Nations General Assembly, as soon as Zelensky returns with some understanding with the further situation in Ukraine, of his future situation in Ukraine. The only video we got from Ukrainian side is that as a result of some FPV drone strike, they managed to destroy Russian tanks somewhere in the north of Novoprokopovka. So currently no changes on the ground when talking about the movements and so on. There were no changes on Vremevka tactical bridgehead as well. We haven't received nothing during the previous night, just another destroyed Ukrainian artillery system as a result of counter-artillery duel. The sources are saying that on this video we could see how the Russians managed to discover and destroy Ukrainian crab system as a result of counter-artillery duel. The distance between this artillery system and the closest Russian positions is more than 10 kilometers. When talking about Artyomovsk, Bakhmut, we haven't received also nothing from this area, just few corrections and geolocations. From interesting, we see how the Ukrainians are using their helicopters, were attacking the Russian positions right in the vicinity of Klishevka, very close to the combat line. 2 helicopters feel themselves pretty safe without any danger being killed, destroyed and attacked by the Russian air defense systems. So we see that they do have possibilities to fly very close to the combat line and to attack the Russian positions. Also, we got more details from the northern part of Klishevka. Today, the Russian sources published the video of another Ukrainian attempt to storm the northern edge of the settlement. There was like assault team, assault squad, assault troopers who were trying to move along the ruins of this part of Klishevka, so which confirms that as a result of clashes that took place during the previous days, the Ukrainians managed to establish 100% control over Klishevka. And later also in the same video we can see the Russian strike with FPV drone that took place a little bit to the south. So these 2 positions, on the first icon we saw the Ukrainians assault troopers who were heading in direction of the railways. A little bit behind them the Russians made FPV drone strike against the Ukrainian shelter. So basically 98% of the settlement is under complete Ukrainian control. The Russians were forced to leave this territory, and currently they try to establish their positions along the railways on the Russian side, on the eastern side of this area. Today we got, during the previous night, the Russians made a very powerful Iskander strike against the Ukrainian positions inside the Slavyansk agglomeration. As a result of those strikes, there were another Ukrainian positions, another Ukrainian shelter with significant number of Ukrainians were damaged, and a lot of Ukrainians were wounded or probably even killed. When talking about Kupiansk-Liman frontline, we haven't received nothing during the previous night of the local time. Also, the Russians during the previous night made another wave of attack, wave wave of drone attacks, Garand attacks against the Ukrainian positions, against the Ukrainian facilities and infrastructure. On this video in Kremenchuk oil refinery, we can see how the Ukrainian air defense tried to shut down the Russian Hiran drone, but that attempt failed, and as a result of Garand strike, the Russians managed to damage and probably significantly damage another Ukrainian oil refinery with significant stores with oil, and we got later satellite image from this area with the fire. So as you can see, the entire oil facility is under very heavy fire, and this is the reason, and this is the results of Russian Garand drone strike that took place during the previous night. So we are waiting Zelensky to come back to Ukraine with some updates, and that will give us details regarding the next phase of a special military operation of Ukraine's greatest counter-offensive operation. We expect that today or tomorrow the situation in Azerbaijan-Armenia will be finished, and let's see. And that's it for today. Military Summer channel reminded that you condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.